Hi, everybody, and happy Friday. See, I see our reflections here. I mean, I'm looking at us, so I'm busily fixing it here as we go live. Happy Friday. We're back for our Friday afternoon check-in. Hope your week has been smooth. I am Suzanne DeWitt Hall. This is my beloved spouse, Declan, and we are here to say hello to you again. What's up? What are we talking about?
Hi, everybody. So this week, Sunday, beloved 7th devotional, Sleep or Awake, is coming out.
Woohoo!
And we've had a lot of questions that we've had to field about deconstruction and this book and why we wrote it. So I thought I would take some of those questions and other questions I've seen on Twitter and other social media places and just kind of throw them at you.
Sounds
and
good.
See what we've got. So
I don't know what these are, so this is going to be interesting.
You trust me?
Always.
All right, so let's
sometimes to my peril.
I don't think ever to your peril, but okay. All right, so I'll start with one of the first questions was, why did you write Sleep or Awake?
Writers sometimes use the process of writing as a way of exploring thought, exploring their own views on things and trying to figure things out. So writing this book sort of not chronicles, but went along with some of our processes of deconstruction, and I think we're going to talk more about deconstruction in a minute. Are you asking me what?
I am.
Okay.
We're going down that road. I just got you with this one first.
Okay. Which has been kind of a long process, but has escalated over the last even year or so, 2 years for sure, but the last year, weirdly in pandemic, it kind of escalated. So I wrote it because I knew that we're not the only ones. It's a widespread phenomenon. It's happening all over the country, all over the world. And it's deconstructing your faith and the sort of the tenets of your faith, your understanding of God and scripture and what it means to be holy or righteous. All those questions are complex and it can be challenging. So so I knew that it was a struggle sort of a topic, and there was widespread need, so that's why I wrote it.
And you've been working on this one for a while, because when you first told me about it, I was scared. So I feel what some of you feel about the word deconstruction, but after reading your book, I feel so much better. So let's get into what is deconstruction. Let's kind of explain that a little bit.
Yes. So what I realized was that all of my devotional, starting from Where True Love Is, way back in, when was that published? 2017, I think. But the process started probably in 2010, 2011, when I started questioning the things that I had been taught about what it meant to be Christian and kind of the rules necessary for being in God's favor. So each of these books, each of the devotionals is a deconstruction, sort of an analyzing of a particular topic area. All of them are. And so what deconstruction means is that looking closely at individual elements of a bigger thing so that you can understand it and process it. One of the analogies I use in the book is building blocks. And I talk about how toddlers have this two pleasures when playing with blocks, right? They love piling them up and they love knocking them down. And it's only when all those blocks are in a pile on the floor in front of you that you have the opportunity to build something new and potentially more beautiful than if they were all sort of glued into a thing which can't be changed. You can only just move this big structure and set it down over somewhere else. So deconstruction is something that's going on, as I mentioned, across Christianity, where people are just saying things are out of whack. We've got, it happens a lot in the evangelical church, where there seems to be, there's certainly the appearance of hypocrisy about the words, the instructions and actions of Jesus not lining up with the words and actions of people who are claiming to be people of faith now. And there's a lot of just non Christ-like behaviors that we see widespread in the church. And that's creating a big shake-up, but there's lots of things that can start it. But all deconstruction is analyzing your beliefs and what it means to your life.
Yeah, I'll have to share towards the end of this what my thoughts were going in when you were preparing the book and what they were after I read.
Oh, interesting.
You know, I was blessed to be your first reader. So,
yeah, always.
Do you know anything about how long this movement's been going on? Is this something that's happened since the beginning, or?
I don't. I haven't researched the history. I mean, I think it is. I think it's an ongoing thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That because whether it's that you shift, some people might move from being Roman Catholics to become Baptists, who think that Roman Catholics, are idolaters. There's people who move from all different segments within Christianity to other segments, and there's people who completely abandon their faith and become atheists. So I think it's probably been happening since the beginning of time, but it's only been called deconstruction within Christianity,
Right.
I think, more recently.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to give examples, but I kind of think you did. Do you know, or can you pinpoint a time in your life when you started the deconstruction process?
Well, I think the way my brain works is I tend not to just accept things whole cloth. I certainly, when I was starting my faith journey, most of the formation was Catholic in flavor. It wasn't within a Catholic church, but I absorbed a lot of Catholic teaching. But even so, there were certain things that I didn't necessarily think. For example, I was part of an evangelical church which had a lot of teachings about hell, and I had a hard time believing that that God would put people in a place of burning fire and eternal torment. So even then, as a pretty strongly Catholic believing person, there were pieces that I didn't quite connect with. So that was probably mid-2000s or so, and then when we got together, our relationship escalated everything.
Right. So another question that's come in is, what can people get from this devotional? What do you hope they get from it?
I hope that they get encouragement, because there's all different phases and stages. People can question what's going to happen to them. They can question might they go to this hell, even if they're wondering if it exists? Might they go there because they're wondering whether or not it exists? They might be fearful about losing their church community, because as Christians often center their life around church communities and church activities and volunteer roles and feelings of service. All these kinds of things are potential losses. And so I kind of address these sorts of fears and discomforts in this particular book, in hopes that it will offer some encouragement and companion. The subtitle is 40 Days of Companionship for the Deconstruction Process, because my hope was that this can just sort of be with you as you're going through some of these struggles. Other people are in different places entirely. They don't want to think about God. They don't want to deal with devotionals. They might be in stages of anger, or they might have gone beyond the fearful phases. So this book is really hoping to help people who are feeling uncomfortable and nervous and worried and sort of at the end of their rope.
Well, I think something interesting to me is when you first started talking about writing about deconstruction, my first thought was that it was going to be destruction, that you were going to, take away my God, my faith, and my beliefs. And the opposite actually happened. So that pleasantly surprised me, made me happy. I worried for months as you worked on this book.
You poor thing.
And, I trust you, and I believe the things that you come out with, and I believe that God inspires you. And there's this divine calling to write what you write, and it's helpful to people. So I don't know why I sat in that fear, but I think it's because of coming from evangelical type churches where I believe I was taught something that I was supposed to believe and not question.
Yeah.
So I think that the whole deconstruction process is for us to know that we have permission to ask questions, that you don't have to be afraid, that you have a God that is a more intelligent being than any other being ever, and they want you to be intelligent too, and they want you to ask questions. They want you to ponder those things.
Yeah.
So one of the other questions we have, I'll pop back to that now that I've gone down my little thing. I just was wondering how you came about. Someone said, how did you come about the title Sleep or Awake?
We played with that title for a long time. You often help with titles. Sometimes I've come up with the titles, and sometimes you've come up with titles. Like Sex with God was yours. Theology of Desire had been around for a long time. Where True Love Is came from hymn lyrics. So they've all developed different ways. For Sleep or Awake, we played around with a bunch of titles, and then we sort of stumbled on this idea of awakening, and I started thinking about some of the verses in the Bible related to God's directions or Jesus' instructions to come awake. And so that's where it came from. That's the concept, is that we're all only semi-aware of what reality is in the world. We, our senses only permit us so much data. Our brains are limited in how much we can process. We don't have direct sensory exposure to the divine in a way that we comprehend. And so we're in that way, we're all sort of sleeping. And that's, when all that stuff is stripped away, then there'll be more full union with this power of love that drives the universe. So the idea of, sleep or awake is an invitation for us all to just increasingly become more aware of love, of the love that saturates everything.
Yeah, so when I first was given Beloved's PDF to read as a first reader, and I started to read it, and I was like I said, I was afraid, and it's okay if you're afraid.
Yeah,
it's okay to be afraid. I was taught not to ask questions. I could come up with answers. I'd be in a Bible study and I'd come up with an answer because I had studied that part of the Bible or the historical implications, but I wasn't supposed to ask. Is Sodom and Gomorrah really about this or that, or different questions? Did Noah's Ark really? Was it really able to carry all the animals on it? You just didn't ask it. You just believed that that's what happened. And I think we have such a bigger God than that. Questions are really good. So I start to read your book and I'm scared. And as I read it, I'm going, wow, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to question. I mean, these are things that I think I knew intellectually, but because I'd been taught a certain way, I didn't go down those roads. And I think this book gives you permission to go down those roads and tells you that it's okay and that you're not alone. That if you think that people don't ask questions, you're kind of fooling yourself, because you do, even if you just do inside your head or inside your heart. And we have such a big God. You can get mad at God. You can rip your clothes off and yell at him like David does, and God still loves you. So asking simple questions or trying to figure out what your faith is a good thing. It leads you to a deeper faith.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. When I finished your book the last day, I cried. And I was like, oh my God, this God of ours is so big that I can be who I am and ask these questions, and it's okay. And there's other people going through this. And as always, your words blessed me and comforted me and brought me to a place where I could start growing even more. So, I mean, that's what it did for me. I think that you struggled as much as I did a little bit. I mean, I think asking the questions and writing them down and going through the process, I think you went through it yourself too.
Yeah, I wanted to just, before I go into that, piggyback on something that you were saying there, that not only is it okay to be asking questions, it's one of the other goals of this book is to help you be more comfortable with not knowing. Because in a lot of, maybe in most of Christianity, I'm not sure, there is a rush to answer. So it's like you were saying, in Bible studies and things, you're encouraged to ask questions that are easily answered, right? Where you can point to a verse in the Bible and it will tell you the answer to a particular thing. And out of the Enlightenment, we're told humanity became very focused on our rationality in our brains, and that the only things that are true are the things that can be sort of proven and understood. God's too big to be contained by our brains, and we need to pull away from that need for certainty, and for the need to be able to answer every question. So one of the things that this book does is try to help you become increasingly comfortable with with mystery, with not knowing, with feeling unsettled. It's sort of counterintuitive, but it's important.
And specifically, I think for this community, I mean, a lot of the people on this page are allies or LGBTQ people, and we've been told from churches, unless you're going to an MCC church or maybe a PCUSA church, you've been told that your lifestyle or who you are is a sin. And God created you, and that's a lie. God loves you, and it's not a sin to be who you are. And our God is so much bigger than those 66 books that many churches try to contain God in. And I think anything that brings you to a place of contemplation or pondering the vastness of how big God is and what love is a really good thing.
It's a godly thing.
I hope that you all will leave this and not be afraid.
Yeah. If you are in a place of fear, we lift you in prayer right now.
Right.
As we're saying this, maybe you can put a comment in the comments about the aspect of fear, because there's going to be a follow-on book to this that I'll be working on, so we can maybe address that and we can perhaps reply there. But if you are feeling afraid, it's okay. It's even okay to be afraid. It'll pass.
When it paralyzes you, that's the problem. I always think of hope as one step, and one step is to think about why you are or what's happening. So I think that taking that step of hope is a good thing. So this is our book.
If you're afraid, this book is meant to help.
It is. Well, we'll be sharing stuff about deconstruction.
I'm sure we'll be doing giveaways and things, because we always do.
What it isn't, and more about the book. We have some wonderful pastors and life counselors who have written blurbs and reviews for the book already, and we'll be sharing some of their insights, and they help form our thoughts and who we are, and they're big encouragements to us, so we want to share those with you. I'm proud of you for writing this book.
Why, thank you, sweetheart.
I think it was a challenge,
for participating.
and it's really quite lovely in my opinion.
I'm glad.
So you want to wrap us up?
Yes. We will see you next week. What's happening this week? Is anything exciting happening? We're moving into a new month.
Right.
Vaccination rollout is going well. Hopefully you will have a chance to get vaccinated and are staying safe. We're trying to. We're isolating and sick of it. So if you're sick of it, we're right there with you. And otherwise, I think it's a calm week, right? February and March tend to be a little bit slow and calm.
It's a short, calmer week. One thing I'm excited about is that this book is coming out on Sunday, which would have been my Nana's birthday.
Oh.
And she is the closest, besides you, human example of unconditional love, which represents God to me. So it's going to be a banner day for me that this comes out on her birthday. And
lovely
I'm
timing,
really happy about that. So,
Well,
we hope that all of you have a great week.
Yes, and we will talk to you next Friday again.
Bye-bye.
We love you. Mwah. See ya.